All right, let's look at chapter 2. As you remember last week, we ended, she was dreaming of this guy, looking at him, and eventually had a meeting, kind of like a first date with him. She went home, and now she's really dreaming about him. Had them all married up and all that stuff, and he's just thinking, she's a nice girl. Kind of a first date. So she is way out of balance, and you'll notice that how unbalanced that relationship was. I mean, she's got him lock, stock, and barrel, signed, sealed, and delivered, and he's just thinking, that was a nice date, she's a nice kid. And he was building her up the whole time, telling her that she was gorgeous, she was beautiful, she shouldn't be down on herself and all this stuff. So eventually, of course, you might say that he was part of the reason why she was all excited. But again, we have a very strong and unbalanced kind of relationship. Now, this starts off today, she's still reeling from that great first date, okay? And she starts off, I am the rose of Sharon, I am the lily of the valleys. Of course, his response is, like a lily amongst the thorns, so is my darling amongst the maidens. Like an apple tree amongst the trees of the forest, so is my beloved amongst the young men. In the shade. Yes. Huh? No, this is her. Okay. Her response. His was, like a lily amongst the thorns, so is my darling amongst the maidens. And then she goes. And then she starts about him again. Like an apple tree amongst the trees of the forest, so is my beloved amongst all the young men. In his shade I took great delight and sat down, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. He has brought me into his banquet hall, and his banner over me is love. Let him sustain me with raisin cakes and refresh me with apples, because I am lovesick. This is her afterglow. She's really into this. Let his left hand be under my head, and let his right hand embrace me. Then he answers, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the hinds of the field, that you not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. Then it goes back to her. Listen, my beloved, behold, he is coming. Let him climb upon the mountains and leap on the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, he is standing behind our wall, looking through the window, peering through the lattice. My beloved responded and said to me, Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come along. For behold, the winter is past, and the rain is over and gone, and the flowers have already appeared in the land. The time has arrived for the pruning of vines, and the voice of the turtle dove has been heard throughout our land. The fig tree is ripening its figs, and the vines in blossom have given forth their fragrance. Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come along. O my dove in the cleft of the rock, in the secret place. No, this is still her. Okay. This is all her. The whole rest of the chapter. In the secret place of the steep pathway, let me see your form. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet, your form is lovely. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that are ruining the vineyards. While our vineyards are now in blossom, my beloved is mine and I am his. He pastures his flock amongst the lilies until the cool of the day when the shadows flee away. O turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of Bethar.
This Bible is messed up.
Huh?
This Bible is really messed up.
Your Bible is messed up.
Yeah, I have the he and the she in all the wrong places.
No, that's all her. She's daydreaming.
Okay, because I have...
Remember, women talk more than men.
Through the 14 and 15, I have it as a he.
You want to know a biological fact?
It's true.
The voice, the vocal cords of a male are an inch or more, over an inch. But on a woman, it's only 3/4 of an inch. They've worn them down. They just yak. It's a true story. Little medical trivia there for you.
I believe you.
Okay, see what's happening here. She went out and had a great first date, right? And everything is great, and she's dreaming about him, he's dreaming about her, they're both talking about each other, and what happens here? They perhaps meet again here, and what has taken place here? First of all, you see her accepting and believing now his praise of her. Whereas before she was swarthy and burned and uncapped, and now she is the rose of the valley. I am, how's that chapter start? This really comes off the last chapter. She looks at herself in the mirror and this time doesn't see a weathered woman, but she says, I am the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valley. She acknowledges her beauty. And, he takes that and she acknowledges it. And because of him, so I'm going to give her a little direction this way. And then what happens after that? She's beginning to believe that she is worth it. She is beginning to believe that she is pretty. She's beginning to believe that, at least to this guy, she's a catch. And of course he answers and says, you are like the lily amongst all the thorns, so is my darling amongst all maidens. So, he comes back with a further confirmation, if you will, a further substantiation to where saying, sweetheart, you need to believe this because you are pretty and kind and gorgeous and all that. A lily amongst the thorns. Everyone else is a thorn next to you. So, you see this kind of exchange of pleasantries, if you will, but actually what she's doing is she is beginning to finally believe him. Hey, this guy thinks I'm pretty, right? Whereas before she didn't even think herself as pretty. So that's strengthening the relationship. She's falling in love not just with him, but herself maybe for the first time in a long time. And she's saying, hey, this could work. This could happen. What was once a dream or just a first date and all that is beginning to set into reality. Now, the danger here, folks, is to try and, kind of like my uncle used to say on his farm, you don't crank up the John Deere harvester and take it out to the field of corn when the corn is only this high. Why? Well, because they're just little plants with a couple of leaves hanging out. There's nothing to harvest there yet. In other words, time. It takes time. All these people say, I fell in love in first sight. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying I don't know if that's God's preference for the development of a relationship. It happens a lot in the world, and a lot of times it doesn't work out so long. But if the Lord were going to tell you how to do it, I think He might say, take your time. You're in no hurry here. There's no sense to crank up the harvester when the corn is only a couple inches through the ground. You're going to ruin this stuff. But the danger is, when you find something you really love, when you find something that's supporting in you, when you find something that looks like it could be all of that, what do you want? You want it now. Judas did the same thing with Jesus when he tried to betray him. It wasn't so much as a betrayal as it was almost him forcing Jesus' hand to bring the kingdom of God. Hurry up, do it! And at least some theologians believe that, and I do too. I think, the whole betrayal thing wasn't so much Judas hating Jesus as he was just saying, well, this will force Jesus to bring his strength, his armies, his troop, his whatever, and put an end to this. And then, of course, Judas would fancy himself, I'm sure, in a position of authority, as did many of the men. Even John and James or whatever went up and asked Jesus, can we sit at your right and your left? And, wanted a position of authority. And Jesus said, you don't even know what you're talking about. Anyway, it is common human nature when you come upon something good is to do it now, to have it now, right? You see that brand new car and you say, well, I don't really have the money for it. Oh, well, we can work it out. So you can have it now. You want it now, you're worth it. Why? You're worth it. You've got to have it now. So we become impatient. Now, when you're talking to young people and you realize that God made us very sensual beings. By sensual, I mean the senses. Everything we learn and know comes by way of our five senses. I see it, I smell it, I taste it, I touch it, or I hear it. That's where 99.999% of our information enters our thinking, our bodies, our minds, our brains. Everything comes through senses. So you take the fact that God made us male and female. You take the fact that God made us sensual beings. And I'm not talking about sexual. I'm talking about sensual. That everything we learn is through the actual touch, hearing, manipulation. And then you add to the fact that God made us sexual beings. And you tie all that together. You're a pretty woman. You're gorgeous. You're beautiful. You're all this. And you put all that together. What do you think's going to happen? I got to get this boy in the back of the Chevy. Now, is that a good idea? Well, you know what? To jump into that kind of physical, sensual being type perspective when you've just met is like my uncle would say, you don't want to yank out the harvester when the corn is only 3 inches high. All you're going to do is destroy the corn and ruin your harvester because it's just going to be digging dirt. So here's the danger. When it gets to be like this, and women, especially young women, learn, boy, he's the captain of the football team. He really does like me. Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Now, you'll see what happens. She dreams a little bit more, saying, like an apple tree, so is my beloved apple tree amongst the forest. That tells you right there what she thinks of him. How many times have you been tromping through a big, thick forest and you find a beautiful apple tree? Never. Apple trees are like any other fruit trees. They have to be cultivated. They have to have their space. They have to have lots of sunlight. They can't have a forest over them. They have to be nurtured. And you would never find an apple tree amongst the forest. In fact, if you went to the forest and planted specifically an apple tree, chances are pretty good it wouldn't grow. It would probably die out. See what I'm trying to tell you? So for her to say, my beloved is like an apple tree amongst the forest, is really her saying what? He's 1 in a billion. This guy is the most unique, most beautiful, loveliest thing I've ever seen in my life. This is how she's thinking. Not him. He's still thinking it's a first date. And she's saying, well, I guess maybe I am beautiful. And he does come and says, of course you are. Told you that the whole time. Don't put yourself down. And she's thinking what now? This guy is. Listen to the way she talks about it. He's brought, let him sustain me with raisin cakes, refresh me with apples because I am lovesick. And then she issues the invitation to get physical. Let his left hand be under my head and his right hand embrace me. This was a move of romance, folks. And immediately, how does he respond? No. We're not ready. She is all that on this guy, saying, boy, if I don't move quickly, I'm going to lose this. I am lovesick. He is 1 in a billion. He thinks I'm gorgeous. I got to get this boy in the truck. And you see this massive invitation to get physical, sexual. He's the one that responds immediately, that says, listen, I assure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles and the hinds of the field. That means quickness, fastness, strength, fast, speed, agility. By the gazelles of the field, that you not awaken or arouse my love until she pleases. In other words, until we're ready. Don't do it. So to counter this, he issues an immediate, as gorgeous and as wonderful as that might sound, that's a bad idea. Now think about it for a minute. Go back to the days when you were dating. First time with a girl or first time with a boy. And you go out and the first date or two, at least back in the old days, today nothing's sacred anymore, but in the old days, you go out and the first couple of dates are kind of like fact-finding missions, aren't they? It's intel, it's recon. You know, you go out, and I'm dating Cucaracha, and I go, and we laugh and we giggle, and we go and we have pizza, and I find out that you like pineapple on your pizza. I'm going, oh, wow, that's weird. But figures. You're the pineapple pizza eater. So I'm taking all this in, and she's doing the same thing, saying, well, he calls me Cucaracha, and he's a nut, and and we're intelling each other. Okay? It's all intel. And then pretty soon, maybe after a date or two, it starts getting a little more serious. Well, what do you want to be in 10 years? Or what's your dreams? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? And you start sharing a little bit stronger information, a little bit more intimate information. Do you ever want a family? Do you want children? Where would you like to live? Stuff like this. You see what I'm saying? So together, that back and forth, what we're doing is we're beginning to learn of each other. Where are you from? From the islands. What were the islands like? What is the culture like? Could we live there, or should we live here? Or, all of these things we're starting to exchange. And in the meantime, what we're doing is we're building that relationship. We're letting the corn grow, so to speak. You see, it hasn't bloomed yet, but we're letting the corn grow. And I'm finding out what makes Cucaracha Cucaracha. I'm finding out her dreams. I'm finding out her joys. I'm finding out her sadnesses and her weaknesses and her disappointments. I'm finding out what makes her her. And in the meantime, she's doing the same thing to me. And that's wonderful. And that's the way I think God wants it for seasons. But unfortunately, what happens is this. Because once we say, hey, this guy really is a catcher, that Cucaracha, she's a babe, then oftentimes here comes the tempter. You're a sensual being. You're a sexual being. Give it a try. You're going to love this. It's the greatest roller coaster you've ever been on. And sadly, what happens with our beautiful girls and beautiful young men is they start dating and they're going along and they're going along and they're going along. And especially in this day and age, before you know it, it turns sexual. They start holding hands. Well, once that license or that permission has been granted, every date thereafter will have that aspect in it. We'll be holding hands. Or she plants a big old kiss on him. So now it's getting a little, oh man. Now, every date thereafter will end in a kiss. One way or another. Or maybe even the whole date will be a kiss or make-out session. And it goes along, and before you know it, see, we're sensual creatures. We want the next step. We want to go to the next level. And then it's a little feel here, or a cup of feel, or something like that. Now it's gotten really sexual, physical on physical, not just lips, but now the bodies. And every date thereafter, it will be dominated by the fact, when are we going to, play with the stuff? And hopefully and sadly, eventually then you have sex or intercourse, and every date after that, it's almost expected. And you say, Tom, that's not true. Yes, it is. Because we are sensual beings. We are sexual beings. And there is no stronger learning experience, if you will. There is no stronger input. There is no stronger relationship that we have on this earth than that between a male and a female, or a man and a woman in a sexual setting. The sadness is, oftentimes once the sexual starts, the genuine part of who you are ends or is neglected. Because now the emphasis is right here. Man, I have got to get on with this girl. And this is the sad part. In other words, we're trying to harvest corn that's only 3 inches high. And then once we get down this road here and we grow tired of the same old sex, we've got nothing to really keep her around for. Or we got nothing to keep him around for. And then, well, I'm sorry, man. You're just screaming too much. Forget it. Get out of here. The woman wants this. The man wants this, generally. And it's very dangerous. It is, if it's employed before it's ready. Best illustration I got is you're harvesting corn that's only 3 inches high. All you're going to do is jam up and ruin your harvester, and you're going to kill all that corn. Bottom line, the relationship will die. Even though it was good seed, even though it was planted well, and even though it started growing fine, then a pestilence moved in. Well, Thomas, sex pestilence? Well, it can be. In the hands of children or in the hands of people who are not ready. So you see the immediacy of his response. No! Now she might take that as, well, gosh, what did I do? I thought he'd be all over this. 99.999% of men would not say no. They would say, heck yeah, let's go play. Never realizing what they're doing in this relationship. Because once you grant that permission, once it goes sexual, physical, it will stay that way. Or at least be expected. In fact, it's not only expected, but if he doesn't get it or she doesn't get it, usually the man. If the man doesn't get it by the end of the night or whatever, then he's disappointed. He's aggravated. Sometimes even fights break out. Well, I don't even know why I'm going with you. Wait a minute, what happened to this? What makes me happy? What makes me dream? And 90% of the time, women don't even understand it. What's this guy all about? Well, what this all about is right here. This is what's happened. A new dragon has reared its ugly head, so to speak, and it is a powerful force to be reckoned with. Not a beautiful force. Instead of the mysteries of a sexual relationship, you have the miseries of a sexual relationship. And it certainly is not God intended. You'll notice God is yet to be a part of this. Right now it's still, he thinks I'm wonderful. Yes, you are wonderful. Well, I got to get this boy in a truck. He, and Solomon is probably the only man in the history of mankind that said this, says, no, wait. Don't arouse or awaken this sexual aspect until they're ready, until we're ready. You see what's going on back and forth here? Well, that must have taken her aback a little bit. Most people would say, well, gee, what did I do? Well, then she says, listen, my beloved, behold, he is coming, climbing upon the mountains, leaping on the fields. He's like a gazelle or a stag. He's he's looking through my window. He's coming to see me. But listen to what the notes she's making. Behold, the winter's past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers have appeared in the land. Time has arrived for the pruning of the vines. The voice of the turtle dove is returned in our land. The fig tree is ripening its figs. The vines in blossom have given forth their fragrance. What is she talking about? A season has passed. A season has passed. Since this no, time has passed. A season, say 6 months or so. The winter is over. We have a reference to the passing of time. What do you think's probably going to be the next move then? Be careful. Be careful. She goes from the passage of time, the beauty of nature, to her own back to her relationship. Listen to what she says. The vines of the blossom have given forth their fragrance. Now arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come along. Okay, I've waited 6 months. Let's get this show back on the road. Let me see your form. Let me hear your voice. Your voice is sweet and your form is lovely. He's a hunk. And she wants it. Catch the foxes, the little foxes that are ruining the vineyards while our own vineyards are now in blossom. She's in heat. My beloved is mine, I am his. He pastures his flocks amongst the lilies until the cool of the day when the shadows flee away. Oh, turn, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains. In other words, come get it. What do you think's going to happen next? This is her thinking. All right, we've waited 6 months. The season has passed. Now I'm ready. Well, I got to ask you, are you ready in 6 months? As long as that may seem to young lovers, it's not that long. And I'm not saying there's a rule of thumb, because each life and each person and each circumstance is different. Carol and I dated 4.5 years. That's a long time. And we weren't hoo-hawing or none of that stuff. She wouldn't allow it. It's just, it was this stuff here. That's probably why we're married now 37 years. See what I'm saying? It was a whole lot of, at that time in our lives, we were developing our relationships, not so much with one another, but God. We were focusing on God and bringing God into our relationship. We're making the time for studies and worship services and programs and Bibles and all this stuff specifically to help us guide our lives as we started into uncharted territory in our lives. And we adhered to the Lord, and we put up for ourselves vows and conscience and things that we would and would not do before the season was ripe, before it was ready. And it wasn't just a sexual thing, it was the dating thing, it was even tithing. We decided back then we will be tithers all the days of our lives. At least 10% or better if we can. And to this day we have done that. And people say in the last 6-7 years, Carol's been blessed with this great job. And, we never had much up until then, but the last 6 or 7 years, God really come through. And we've been able to take trips and do stuff that we never before could do. But I believe in my heart and in my mind, it goes all the way back to when we started dating 41 years ago. When we told God then, we're going to try our best to be faithful. And we were. Now, it took a lot of years to realize that, but I think it is just direct correspondence to putting God in our relationship, not just putting Him there, keeping Him there. See, anybody can be a tither for a day. Anybody can be a worshiper of God for a day. Anybody can praise the Lord for a day or a month. What about 37 years down the road? Now where are you going to be? Is God still going to be around in your life? Or are other things going to take priorities from this world? Because they will. Why? Because you're a sensual being. And God is kind of an invisible God. Because you're a sexual being. And God is kind of a, no sex thing. No male, no female, no rich, no slave, no poor, nor free, or whatever. And my wife is right there. She's real. She's as other women, as other people, as other things, And our hearts run after many lovers. Not just the one we love and call wife, but sometimes it's jobs. Sometimes it's positions or possessions or power. Sometimes we run after many things. Many lovers, so to speak. Why? Because we are sensual beings with a sexual nature. And anything physical is going to attract our attention. Right down to that big old fat double slimy extra greasy cheeseburger. Is that healthy? No, but am I going to eat it? You betcha. Why? Because that's what I love. We say it all the time. Oh, I love those. Really? You've built a relationship, an emotional attachment to a burger. Yes. But that's how we talk. Why? Because the physical is what we crave. It's who we are. It's how we know. It's how we learn. 5 senses. I like the way the burger looks. I like the way the burger smells. I like to hear that burger's on sale. I want to taste that little burger, and I'm just going to eat it up and devour it, you see. And then next time I see a burger, what am I going to think? That's good right there. I'm going to get it. And if you don't believe that, try a Crystal burger. And then you're hooked forever. The power of the Crystal. Anyway, she is already coming back to this. I got to get my boy here. Time has passed. So what do you think she's going to do next? Chapter 3. What do you think's going to happen next? It's like the kid sitting by the side of the swimming pool and his mom said, no, you got to wait an hour because you just ate. What is that kid focused on? Time. No other time in his world does he care about it, but now I want to get in that pool. 5 minutes left, 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left. Good. Like there's an hour is going to make a difference, you know. Oh, well, now I can get in the pool. What do you think she's thinking about? Time has passed. I got to get this boy in the truck, so to speak. And that's what we're coming into. Now, next week, you're going to look at chapter 3. You can read ahead, but immediately, what does she say? We can go ahead and jump. Let's go ahead and read the first 5 verses. So she's ready. Time has passed. She's watched the clock. She's played by his rules. She's, put her time in. I don't know how much of this was happening, but nevertheless. And she says, now she's saying to herself, on my bed night after night, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but did not find him. I must arise now and go about the city and the streets and in the squares. I must seek him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but did not find him. The watchmen who make the rounds in the city, they found me and they've asked. And I said, have you seen him whom my soul loves? Scarcely I had left them when I found him whom my soul loves. I held on to him and would not let him go until I brought him into my mother's house, into the room where she had conceived me. She's all over this man, dragging him in there. I waited my 30 minutes, my 6 months. He's hot. I'm going to grab him. I'm going to drag him in. I asked the watchman. I'm making the effort. I'm running around the city. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? He finally bumps into him. And what does she do? Let's go to my mom's house. She's on vacation for a week. Drags him into her bedroom where she was conceived. I mean, what is the verse there? What is the intent there? And how does he respond again? I assure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles and the hinds of the field, that you not arouse or awaken my love until, it says until she pleases, but until we're ready. Not yet. There's other responsibilities besides just taking advantage of the fact your mom's out of town and you've got the horny blues going on there.
I've got a lot of restraint.
And she's thinking, I've waited 6 months for crying out loud. You said we got to wait. I've waited. But the relationship is not as it should be yet. That's the problem. It still has very little to do with any true sharing of God or any true mutual meeting points in responsibility. Right now it's still, I want him, he's gorgeous, I want him, I'm going to get him, I'm going to get him, I'm going to get him. And he's saying, no, slow down, stop. We're in middle school, for crying out loud. Used to be high school, used to be college, but now, it gets younger every year. Now it's elementary school. The fact is, you see what's happening though? He is a man of tremendous restraint. You are correct. And like I said, 99.999% of men would not do this. They would have taken her back here. For sure. Once she offered it, boom, it's a done deal. And they wouldn't have waited 6 months. They'd have been, by now, I would imagine, a lot of times, they'd be getting tired of it, and the relationship might be ending, in fact, over 6 months. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. Well, in this case, it's true. I've waited. The season has passed, the winter is gone, everything's budding, the birds are chirping, the vineyards are blossoming. Our vineyards are blossoming. And he says, just chill. And then she says, well, I'll go find him and drag him into my own mother's bed because she's out of town, and it'll be a done deal. And lo and behold, to the miraculous amazement of all of us, what does he say? Not yet. Not yet. He's not truly saying no. He's just saying not yet. We're not ready for this. Kind of like throwing your car keys to a 9-year-old saying, yeah, go ahead, drive down 7-Eleven and pick me up something, will you? Now, the 9-year-old would love to try, I'm sure. But see, this is where common sense and true intelligence and self-control must take over. I'm 9, Dad, I can't. Well, 9-year-olds don't have that rational capacity. That's why middle school kids trying to make these kind of decisions can't. And the little girls come home pregnant, and the little boys spread rumors, and it's a horrible thing. It's not the mysteries of sexuality, it's the miseries of sexuality. And you say, well, how did all this happen? Well, you put a loaded gun in the hands of a 9-year-old. But see, that's who we are. There's not a kid on the planet, even when they're born as little babies, you give them peas, you give them peas, you give them peas, you give them peas, and then you give them that first piece of chocolate. They're never going to want those peas again. Ever. Why? Because now they've tasted it. By the time they're 2, by the time they're 3, a kid won't eat anything. Why? Well, because, they've tasted the chocolate. You see? That's who we are. We are sensual creatures. Understand that. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we mistake sensuousness with sexualness. And it's not. We are sensual creatures. Everything I know, love, learn about, come to know or love or learn about is through my 5 senses. I don't have an osmosis brain. Facts don't just, squeeze their way in there and make themselves relevant. I have to see them. I have to prove it. I have to learn it. I have to understand it. I have to hear it or touch it or taste it. You can tell me all day long about an orange, but until I taste an orange, I will never know what an orange tastes like, will I? It's like trying to describe the color of an orange to a blind man who's never seen. How would you do that? There's no way to make someone understand the color of orange if they've never seen orange. And there's no way to tell me how wonderful the fruit is if I've never tasted it. You can show me pictures of it, but until I taste an orange, I can't tell you. I can't really make a value judgment on it. Can't accept it or reject it. Because I don't know, right? Well, sadly, the same is true about the physical nature of our being. The mystery is there. I wonder what she looks like. Very powerful stuff. Very dangerous stuff. It will either make, break, destroy, or employ the relationship. This is the power of our being. This is the danger of our being. And this is what we throw into the hands of the middle schoolers. And then enhance that and grant permission to that through all our videos and music and all this stuff, saying, get out there and do it. I'm just a love machine. In the movies that Hollywood's coming out with are just ridiculous. They're sick. There's no boundaries. And it's quite evident, as much as we want to say we're a liberal nation and we're really open-minded and all. No, you're not. You've gone back to barbarism, basically. This is civilization right here. Not on her part, but on his. Now you got to understand, this was Solomon, one of the wisest men in the world. It was a gift God gave him so that he could help teach us the dynamics of ourselves. People say, well, this is just a metaphor between Jesus Christ and His holy church. Nonsense. Nonsense. I don't believe that. First of all, because it's 1,000 years before Christ. Second of all, because God made us these sensual, sexual beings with this incredible power to build or destroy others in relationship. And you're not going to give me an owner's manual? Teach me how to use this. If nothing else, teach me how to control it so I don't destroy myself. That's what this is. And you're going to see this unfold. Because God's going to become very prevalent here very quick. How would we do it to where it's not about me or about you, but about how we can meet on this middle ground and do it the way the Lord does it, responsibly, knowingly, purposely, in light of a future. Not just let's get in a truck and get it on, and I don't really care about tomorrow. All right, we're going to see that start to unfold, but that's why I went ahead into the chapter 3. You see this again, that sexual temptation and his incredible restraint, even though she dragged him into the bedroom. No, we cannot do this. We cannot do this, or we will destroy ourselves. Most kids don't believe that. 99.9% of the men don't believe that. They get right into the bed and say, it's about time. That 99.9% of the men would have done it back here when she first offered. But then that puts an end to all of this neat learning stuff about dreams and goals and futures and, homes and children and generations. It gets worse. All right, we're going to look at it next week. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry everybody else isn't here. They missed the good